Good evening, everyone. We're just waiting for Dawa to get on the call. But hello to everyone who's connecting. Feel free to type something in the chat box to let me know you can hear me. I can see you all coming on now. We'll be ready to start in about 2 minutes, everyone. Hi, Nicola. How are you doing? Good to know you can hear me. And thank you for joining the call tonight. Hi, Samba. Good to have you on the call. Samba and I are going to be on retreat together soon, so I'm glad you're here. We have a very exciting retreat coming up with Lars Mool on the 2nd of October. It's nearly sold out, but Samba's got her place and I'm going. So it's great to have you on the call so we can connect. Good to see some of our regulars on the call. And we're looking forward. Dawa's going to be with us in a second and we'll get to speak to him about his upcoming workshop. Okay, just got a message from Dawa. He's just coming on. We're looking forward to speaking to him. Thanks, guys, for logging on time. Should be joining us any moment. And if you go to the right-hand side of your screen, guys, you can type in any message, any questions for Dawa during the call. Please feel free to. We're going to talk to him a bit about his background, the work he's doing in Santa Barbara, the workshop he has coming up, and he's going to tell us a bit more about his perspective on mindfulness. So do type anything you want to ask him. Now's your opportunity. It's always good to connect with the speaker before they do a workshop with us, so we get to pick his brain a little bit about his process. I think he's in a different time zone now, so maybe that's taking a bit longer to log on. Hi, is that you, Dawa? Let me know if you can hear me.
Hello, Vindisha. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you as well.
Oh, great. Good to have you on.
Yes, it's very good to be here. I have not used Webinar Jam before, so I apologize. I was prepared to come on through my iPhone, but I realized I'll have to use my laptop. So I
Oh, that's
apologize for the
okay.
slight delay.
No worries. We have very patient webinar attendees, so that's great. It's good to speak to
Good.
you.
Yes, good to speak
Um,
to you too.
Great. We've got
So,
some of our regulars from Alternatives on the line, so it's really good to have them here. And some people are joining the call as we speak. And just to let everybody know who's on, this will be available for replay. So if you miss anything, we'll send out the replay and you can hear it again to hear more. And thank you for your patience. Thank you for joining the call. And it's a real pleasure to have Dawa here. We're going to do some Q&A with him. So if you've got any questions, do type them in the chat box. Some of you have sent them in beforehand, and he'll let us know a little bit about himself, about his work in Santa Barbara and all over the world, and about an event he's got coming up at Alternatives. So if you haven't all heard of Alternatives before, we are an events company in London who started in 1982 at St James's Church in Piccadilly. And we host weekly spiritual events. We've hosted everybody from Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Ram Dass and Thich Nhat Hanh. and we run spiritual retreats as well all over the world. And we're welcoming Dawa, Touch and Phillips to Alternatives for the first time on the 6th of October. And he's got such an extensive CV, so we'll just let you know about a couple of the things he does. He's considered a leading voice in the global movement of mindfulness. He's the founder of the Institute of Compassionate Awareness in Santa Barbara. He's the president and CEO of Empowerment Holdings, which is a coaching consultant firm which teaches mindfulness-based leadership. He's a resident teacher at the Santa Barbara Bodhi Path Center. And he's also the executive director of the International Mindful Teachers Association, which is the world's first professional organization for mindfulness teachers and teacher training programs. So, welcome to the call, Dawa. It's lovely to speak to you.
Yes, Venetia, it's lovely to speak to you too. I thought this was such a nice idea to connect with your community. And Alternatives came recommended to me through some mutual friends in Ireland. So I'm excited actually to be on this call and get to know the community a little bit better and maybe answer some questions.
Wonderful. Well, from reading your CV, you're an entrepreneur, you have many jobs, you're involved in many great projects in Santa Barbara. Being so busy, how do you have time to meditate?
It's an interesting question. I think meditation is the foundation of my daily life and also my moment-to-moment experience. One of the things that isn't in the bio is that I have been living as a Buddhist monk for 12 years of my life in a monastery in France, actually in my 20s and 30s. And I spent 7 years of those years in meditation retreat, which really deeply transformed my relationship to the present moment. And so the meditation is really the foundation of who I am and how I go about things and why I do what I do. And so it's my home, you can say, to which I return every evening and from which I arise every morning. I don't know if that makes sense, but that is probably the most accurate description. So it's my foundation. Meditation is my foundation, and my relationship to the nature of being and the nature of mind is the foundation for what I do.
Yes, and the projects you're involved in, you're very prolific. We see the work that you put out there, and people's number one excuse for not meditating or practicing mindfulness is time. And we live in such a fast-paced city in London. I think you grew up in New York, didn't you?
I was born in New York to a multicultural family. My father was from the West Indies. My mother is German, and they met in New York, and I was born at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital there. But when I was a child, they went to Europe and to Germany to be supported by my grandparents. And so my childhood I spent in Germany, and then later I came to the US for studies, and then went to live in France as a monastic, and now live in California. So I have been a bit all over the place and consider myself today more of a global person. But having been born in New York has always meant a lot to me because I identify very much with the globality of that city. And I think also it's a city that encourages creative expression, which I also think is important. I think, in like spirituality is a really important foundation, but it's equally important that people learn how to express what they came here for and what they have to offer to the world. And so I think New York is very good in helping people learn that. So maybe that's one of the one of the reasons why I like it.
Absolutely. I think I was in New York in the summer, and I see a lot of similarities to London, and it has that same, the same sort of pace and the same creative hub here. And I think it is polarized. I think, having to deal with the stresses of such a fast-paced city, it can polarize someone to even more look for their creative side and their spiritual side. And And just as there's a big spiritual community there is in London, and it's growing. It's grown exponentially in the last few years because I think people are finally taking seriously what this can do for them. And it
Well, I
seems
think
counterintuitive that you should spend time on something when you have no time. But of course, you could tell us that is counterintuitive in itself.
London is also a very inspiring city, and I think it attracts
Mm.
people from all over the world because of that. I think they enjoy the international experience that they have there, and also really being able to tap into their potential. I think one of the things that everybody longs for, I think, besides inner peace and clarity, is also just accessing one's own potential and having a feeling that one is thriving. And I think that London provides that platform too. But you asked me about
Yes.
time, and there's something I want to say about it, because I think time is something that most of us misunderstand, and we often look for it. We look for trying to get more time by getting to the future faster, and that doesn't work. Time is really expanded by becoming more present, and I think what the fast-paced life teaches us is that what we're looking for is just around the corner, but we'll keep rushing and rushing and rushing and hoping that somehow we'll get to that thing that is eluding us. And I think in my experience, and also what mindfulness and that movement and mindful leadership is about, is really teaching people that the only way to actually gain more time and expand time is by returning to the present.
I think we found that in a lot of the teachers who've come here seem to be so productive, because I guess if we're honest, we worry about our productivity, and we're ambitious and we have goals, and that's the most important thing. And it's been proven that this could help with that. This could help you focus on the right things, prioritize properly, problem solve. And so we're seeing it more and more go into schools and businesses here to increase productivity and to help with stress levels. And I know you do a lot of work with entrepreneurs and leaders. And we always say when we have leadership programs like this, you can be a leader in your family, you could be a leader in your community. So you don't necessarily have to be a manager or a director of a company or anything. We're leaders in many different ways. Do you see that mix of people normally in your classes?
We do. We see a lot of managers, middle managers, and executives, and also entrepreneurs, people who are transitioning out of corporate life and looking for their second chance in life. They want to start something that is maybe more aligned with who they think they are. But also we see a lot of people who are in charge of organizational culture, whether they are leading an organization and they have to reflect on retaining people, or how to create a culture that allows people to actually thrive and to innovate and to work well with others. A lot of the workforce right now is very international, and people work remotely. They often belong to different generations, even though they're on the same team. And so there's a lot of opportunity for misunderstanding, and there's a lot of potential for things getting stuck, and for people to feel discouraged or disengaged or frustrated or isolated, siloed. And I think all these things are making it frustrating for people to take on responsibility, or even to take the responsibility they already have and really feel passionate about it, right? It's not like that we don't have people who have these responsibilities, but oftentimes they feel a little disillusioned and a little disengaged by the whole process. And I think what these tools offer is real clarity and understanding one's own mind, through that also understanding the minds of others, and then understanding how to unlock communication, how to unlock creativity, how to unlock performance. And we see that, I mean, on average, the performance metrics shifts in the double digits through introducing mindfulness into teams, and the turnover rates, they drop into single digits, and the job satisfaction returns. But most of all, I believe, is people are able to finally develop the kind of relationship with themselves that they want to have, where they feel that they know themselves, they trust themselves again. They feel again that they remember who they are and why they're doing what they're doing, and what it is that they are passionate about. And also the relationships with others improve, because leadership is not so much, it's really about inspiring people. And in order to inspire people and influence people, you have to be inspired yourself, right? You have to have personally, you have to be inspired by what you're doing.
Absolutely. And I think that particularly people on the Buddhist path would know about the nature of work and finding passion in everything. So sometimes it is a case of reigniting a passion that was there before. But I think a lot of people in our community as well feel like they went through some kind of awakening or some sort of message to come to this work. Typically, maybe some people on this call will say it's in their 30s, late 30s. But I guess you were quite young if you were in France in a community. Being a monk, it happened early for you. How did you get to France? How did you decide to become a monk for that period of time?
Yeah, I would say, my personal calling started when I was young. I think that being in a interracial family, and who there was an age difference between my parents, they didn't always get along, and so I think I felt lonely, like many young children do, and ask myself, so who am I, and what is my journey about? Right? Watching also the adults around me and noticing their struggles, right? I think once you understand that people are struggling, and you ask yourself what all these struggles are about, you realize you have to begin a relationship with yourself. And for me, that began in childhood, and I began meditating in my late teens. But it wasn't until my early 20s that I really thought, okay, I have to give this some focus. And one of the main, I guess, motivators for that was watching my father pass away. He was quite a bit older than my mother. And I remember sitting at his bedside and just holding his hand and thinking about life and about this opportunity that we have to spend time on the things that really matter to us. And one of the things that really mattered to me was that I had certain questions about life, and I thought I'd want to find the answers to them before I'm on my deathbed.
Yes.
And that made me set out onto a kind of a quest, you can say, as a young man. And it has paid off very well, because I do have peace. I do know the answers to these questions that I had as a young man. And I now find it very rewarding to be able to actually work with people and help them find the answers to their questions. Because everybody has questions. To be a human being means to be a student. We're born with questions. I think we're always learning something. Sometimes we learn what we want to learn, and sometimes we learn what we have to learn.
I think a lot of people can resonate with that experience of feeling disconnected or lonely within their family unit, and it does push people to this work. I think where you talked about the experience of feeling home in your meditation every day, I felt that when I found spiritual literature. I felt, I feel like I'm home. I feel like this is my true family. And it was bigger. It was a spiritual idea that was my family. And I feel that now when I connect with that's a feeling of home for me. And I think a lot of people will feel that in different ways. And is mindfulness a way of disciplining yourself to feel that feeling every day or twice a day?
Yeah, even longer over time. The feeling, how to say, coming home initially is a longing that we project outside. We think that the home that we're looking for somehow is either a country or a city or a group of people or a team or a career or an achievement, right? Like maybe once I've made X amount of money, I'll be home, or once I've achieved partner and I am respected and admired, then I'm home. Or once
Mm.
my wife and children are there every day when I get home, then I'm home, right? We project this idea of home externally, and we get disillusioned by finding that the outer world, in fact, does not provide us the sense of home that we know is possible from our sense within us, right? We have
Mm.
a an image of what home should feel like inside, and every time that we are looking for it outside, we find somehow it's not quite meeting it. And there's some lesson in that. There's some wisdom in that, because the true home experience is actually a coming home to yourself.
Mm.
And unfortunately, that's not always an easy journey. And it is very important to have support, peer support, and support with experienced guides and mentors and coaches and teachers who know that journey and are experienced and also fearless to some
Mm.
degree on that journey, and compassionate and kind with the challenges along that journey. But truly, as we develop that relationship with ourselves, then that feeling of coming home actually emerges and it
Mm.
develops. And because it's there, you know when you don't need actually me or anyone else to tell you when you are home. You will know because you carry that inside of you as a memory, as an imprint, as a vision, right? And so as you
Mm.
are engaging in the practice, then that inner knowing that you already possess, it becomes more and more activated
Yes.
by hearing authentic teachings and having authentic experiences and being guided in an authentic way. Then increasingly your own sense and of home and your own inner guidance system, they become more and more empowered.
Mm. Absolutely. I think the first time I felt it, it did feel like I remembered it rather than a discovery. I felt like I always knew this is how it could be, that I could feel this peace. And you sort of touch it to begin with, and you learn to stay there, and as you said, it can expand. But it was a feeling of this is our natural state, our birthright, to have peace and to live that way. And I think when people feel lost and discover that for the first time, that's a revelation, a change in perspective.
It is, and it's deeply rewarding. And
Mm.
I think we all begin this journey to make friends with ourselves with some level of awkwardness, right? It's a little bit
Yeah.
like when we are a teenager and we're supposed to go to a gathering, and we're standing against the wall with our hands in the pocket, and we don't quite know what to say or who
Yeah.
to talk to. And so sometimes it feels like this when you begin,
Hmm.
because you really don't know how to develop that relationship with yourself
Mm.
in this way. But it works, right? The practice works,
Yeah. Hmm.
and and it has worked for millions of people from all walks of life, from all different cultural backgrounds, all different ages, and there's never really a wrong moment to begin.
Mm. That's right. And I think this we're overwhelmed with the amount of choice of how to meditate and different techniques, and I can tell everybody it is easier with a teacher in a group, because you have the group energy of people supporting you, and you're all in the same boat. If you've never meditated before, it's the best way. um, the mindfulness that you teach, is that suitable for somebody who's never meditated before?
Absolutely. I think also that I want to distinguish between mindfulness practices and meditation practices. There
Yes.
are many mindfulness practices that are really designed to help a person become more present, attentive, and focused in daily life with daily
Hmm.
routine activities and just the daily relationships and chores everybody is taking care of. And then there are meditation practices which are directly intended to introduce someone to the functioning of their mind. And
Mm.
then over that functioning of the mind, introduce them to the nature of the mind. And so that is a very intentional exercise that is meant to create wisdom and clarity. And also will cultivate mindfulness, but in addition to mindfulness, oftentimes can also cultivate deep transformation and this process of that we call awakening, where a person's understanding of who they are can profoundly be transformed, right?
Yes.
And so, so we're teaching mindfulness, which are basic practices to help a person become more peaceful and clear and stable and also focused and directional. And those are practices that are very, very useful just in the way that we carry ourselves, in the way that we handle tasks, in the way that we relate with others, in the way that we take care of our to-do list. And then there are meditation practices grounded in mindfulness that then we have the choice of taking them further, whether we want to focus on generating more loving kindness and compassion for ourselves and others, or we really are interested in understanding more the true nature of reality and really I guess you can say, uprooting some of our deeply held belief systems and behavioral patterns that are sometimes in the way of being happy, and that can make us feel stuck, and that also sometimes make it very difficult, particularly for leaders, to achieve long-term behavior change in the way that they want or desire or need to develop.
Yes, absolutely. I think so. You live in Santa Barbara, don't you, at the moment? Yes, that's wonderful. I see a lot of your projects are there. Have you seen the awareness of this work change in the past 10 years?
Absolutely. So 10 years ago, I got involved in leading research projects for the U.S. Office of Education. We co-founded a research center at the University of California, Santa Barbara, called the Center for Mindfulness and Human Potential. And we spent a lot of time introducing mindfulness into private and public schools and carefully measuring the results that students were getting, and particularly on standardized testing and on their grades, and on some of the standardized testing in math and reading that are prevalent throughout the society there. And we found very good results that we published in peer-reviewed journals, and all of that was also designed to help shore up the evidence base, because people need to know what works and what doesn't. And these practices have been, to some degree, buried in religious traditions for a long time. And I say religious traditions because the spiritual nature of this process of inquiry and awakening and meditation is a universal process that can be really engaged in by anyone at any time, regardless of their religious background or their spiritual preference or orientation. But it's important for us, I think, in modern society to look at these practices and say, okay, so what part of these practices actually are truly transformative and authentic and grounded in real humanity and real wisdom, and what part of these practices are more tradition, and tradition is not something here that I would say is a bad thing. I think it's just sometimes the lack of clarity people have about what a transformative practice is and what something a cultural tradition is. And I think that important work is being done all over the world, because I think we're working on people. There's a large thirst for practices that work. There's a large thirst for transformation. I think people are tired of being held back by the same limitations day in and day out. And I think they want to break free of some of the struggles they've had, for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and actually see something work. And I don't think they just want to be sent around the block again and again, but rather be shown, here's the practices that are proven to work. If you apply them, you don't have to travel half the way around the world. You don't have to follow a guru. You don't have to leave behind your friends and family. You begin a practice right where you are. You can engage who you are, where you are, what is going on, what you're doing, and you will begin to progressively transform your life. And you will have awakening experiences, transformative experiences that will help you understand how these traditions have been around for so long and why they have developed the way they have developed. But rather than saying, you know, the way to start, let's say, is to worship this individual, we can say the way to start might be to just begin with yourself, you know, and begin just paying a little more attention to your breath, your body, your emotions, your thought patterns, and begin awakening yourself. And I think that is working. And I think that we have a lot of evidence from neuroscience, from the social sciences, from behavioral science, that is now really creating the base for the popularity of these practices. And the spiritual aspect, which oftentimes can be identified as deepening trust in oneself, deepening trust in the human nature, and by that I mean not the conditioned, but the unconditioned nature that is within all of us. That is something that develops then naturally as a byproduct of actually doing the practice. And for many people, that's easier than leaping into something that oftentimes is hard to define.
Absolutely. I think discernment is a key issue. I remember a few years ago we hosted Matthew Rickard in Alternatives at St James's Church.
Sure. Yeah.
And you're aware of him. And I remember him being on the front of a magazine. It might have been Time, and they said he was the happiest man in the world, in quotations. And scientists had put these sensors on his head to activate his brain wave activity, and they recognized the brain waves associated with happiness, and they said they'd never seen anything like that before. And he put it down to meditation. And so it was the first major scientific proof that it works. It's not, it's something tangible, it's something measurable. And I know that with your work in the International Mindful Teachers Association, you must have seen many, many teachers and trained them and oversaw them. So I know you're discerning about which practices you teach people as well. So it's great to have you to discern that for us.
Yeah, the International Mindfulness Teachers Association it's a important project at this time, because as the interest in mindfulness is growing, people are also a bit confused as to what makes a qualified teacher, or what makes a quality program, or what should I learn, why, for what reason, with whom, and all of this. And I think that as responsible leaders in this field, we really need to start taking it serious and look at how we can provide some quality standards and some reference points, both for future generations of teachers who we need and want and are very invested in training and bringing along, as well as in programs. You know, so what the IMTA actually offers, it's an independent organization, and it offers a global certification for teachers who've come out of accredited training programs, and it offers these accreditations to training programs. It's a public nonprofit. It has an international board of advisors, and it is just there to help give some reference points to teacher training programs and to teachers and to the general public, so that they can develop and maintain a strong sense of confidence in the quality of mindfulness and meditation teaching in the world. And it's in development. It's early, but it's growing quickly. It has members from over 24 countries, and I think it will be very beneficial in the long term.
Absolutely. I think it's so important. I can see that needed in every major city. Just to the regulation of it is really helpful. considering it's going into companies and schools and building awareness around it is fantastic. And for anybody on the call who experiences, meditates or practices mindfulness, you'll know that the results are not just cumulative, they're exponential over time. So this is a great way if you want to know more about it, if you've never meditated before, or if you want to deepen your practice, then we're very lucky that Dawa is coming to see us on the 6th of October for a one-day workshop. Is there anything you wanted to say about the workshop, Dawa?
I'd love to say something about the workshop.
Yeah.
Yes, because in the workshop, we're really combining mindfulness and meditation with transformational work. And for leaders in today's world, it's very important to understand how transformation actually works and to have an understanding, a personal experiential understanding of the transformation process, but also be able to recognize stages of transformation in others and in groups and in teams and in organizations and in cultures. And I think what we're doing at the moment with the mindfulness based leadership approaches is really helping people recognize how they are in a leadership role every day in regards to the choices they make for themselves and in regards to the way that they show up as a participant in their families, in their communities, but also how they can develop a experiential understanding of a personal growth and transformation process. And I think by doing that, well, maybe I switch back a moment for what we're doing on this day, because I want to give people something that they can work with as a takeaway from this call. I think one of the critical things in good leadership is that the leader has trust, and it's both the trust in oneself that is important, and the trust between a leader and the people that are working with that leader. And trust oftentimes breaks down. And one of the reasons it breaks down is because the source of the trust becomes externalized, which means we take the attitude that our trust really is not our choice, but it's because of others' behavior. It's because of the way the world currently is, the unpredictability, the chaos, the economic challenges, the environmental challenges, the social challenges. And because of all of these challenges, then we can't really trust. And so we remain in this state of distrust, and our personal trust remains low, and the trust we're able to generate within a community or within a team or within our relationships remains low as well. And it is really important to understand that for a leader, you can actually change that relationship by realizing that the outer circumstances as such are not under your control. You cannot control what other people do or say. You cannot control what will happen in the world. But what you can control boils basically down to 5 things. It boils down to what you think, your attitude that you bring to your life, the images that you hold in your mind, what you say and what you do. And those 5 things, we summarize them as TAIWA: your thoughts, your attitudes, your imagination, your words, and your actions. Those are really the 5 things you can learn to control. And what is really important to recognize about those 5 things is that they're all happening in the present moment, without exception. And so if you are not present in that moment, you have no control over your life. And if you have no control over your life, you are unfit as a leader. You are literally in that moment. It is not possible for people to follow you and be safe or be well guided or be well led, right? So it's therefore really important for a leader to become present, to understand where their power lies, to understand tools they have and the things they can control. And to develop that capacity has never been more important than in the times that we're living in, when it is so clear to so many people that the outer world is changing at a pace that is much faster than anyone can keep track of or can keep up with. So the development of the internal leadership skills and the internal stability and the internal stability, internal leadership skills, internal guidance system has never been more important. And this approach that we're teaching people during this workshop is exactly the framework that they will need, so that they can not only begin but continue to cultivate that type of mindfulness and meditation and leadership skills.
Oh, it sounds very comprehensive, and thank you for going through that. That's really helpful. And we've just got a question through from John, who's on the call. Yes. And he's just asking, he says, to what extent do you think that mindfulness and meditation can help in tackling insomnia and sleep disorders?
Yeah, great question, John. Mindfulness and meditation actually has been proven to help reduce insomnia and sleep disorder. One of the easiest way to understand how it can help is that you're learning how to release thoughts and sensations and perceptions. So thoughts, sensations, and perceptions are things that occur at any given moment, and that usually during the day we engage in quite actively. We always feel drawn in our attention towards thoughts, towards perceptions, towards sensations. And so as you're cultivating a more relaxed relationship towards those experiences through your mindfulness practice and your meditation practice, it will be also easier for you to release them as you are going into the sleep state. And what I described earlier, also in regards to the relationship with trust, if you can re-listen to the recording maybe at a later time and reflect on that instruction, you'll find it very helpful, because a deepening experience and sense of trust also contributes greatly to a greater facility of finding rest and sleep at night.
Wonderful. Thank you for your question, John. That's really helpful. So, we've got Carol on the call as well. She says, sounds like an amazing workshop. I'll be there. Thank you, Carol.
I promise really you will not be disappointed. It is truly a special opportunity. And I've not been to London, so this is a good first.
Well,
I mean, I've visited, but this is a first workshop that we're doing together.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we're really looking forward to having you. We're so happy to have someone who's done so much for the mindfulness community in the world and raising awareness and the important work that you've done. It's very special, and we're all looking forward to being there. I'll just tell you on the call about the venue that we have for Dawa. Some of you are already familiar with it. Some of you are regulars. It's at the Study Society in Barons Court. Now, if you're not aware of it, it was founded in 1951 as the School of the Fourth Way. It was the home of Ouspensky, and it's also the home of the Sufi Mevlevi, which was Rumi's Whirling Dervishes dance. So only a few communities were ever authorized to teach the dance, and the Study Society was one of them. And we had a shaman there last weekend, Robert Moss, who a lot of you know. And during his first shamanic journey, he saw a whirling dervish in one of his visions. So it's a very special place. We're very lucky to host workshops there. And the perfect place for any mindfulness practice and meditation. There's lots of private meditation rooms, and it's just the perfect energy to hold this work. So if you're not familiar with it, you'll get to see it on the day, and it's very exciting. I will send everybody on the call details of how to book for the workshop, and I've put the link in the chat box. And if you've got any questions, do send them through to us. Even when we finish the call, we can answer them for you. And you just get an opportunity, like Dawa said, he's never had a workshop here before, so we're very lucky to have this opportunity to spend the whole day with him. So So please do send in your questions, and the link for tickets is there, and you get to experience, it'll be a lot of open Q&A, a lot of practices, and to spend time with an important teacher. So thank you so much, Dawa, for being on this call with us, and we really appreciate your time and your openness going into this subject with us. And we can't wait to spend the day with you.
You are very welcome. I look forward to being with you and also to supporting the work that you're doing and have been doing the last 20 years. Talking with you, I've got a good sense of your own level, of real authenticity and humanity. And I think that is what the world needs. And so I look forward to being with you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody on the call for joining us. Send contact and email us your questions. We'll send you the replay. We hope to see some of you on the day.
Good.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night, and hopefully connect with you soon. Thank you, Dawa.
Thank you, Venetia. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.